And the recording on, and I'm going to start letting ladies in. You good with that?
I'm good. And I have my notes. You didn't have the ability to edit when you sent me your notes. So I have my notes on a separate paper.
Okay.
I was able to edit the slides, obviously, but I couldn't edit in the notes. So,
all right, I'm going to go ahead and start letting them in. We'll just bounce back and forth. You just
sounds good.
tell me when to change if we need to. We'll make it happen. Here we go. Hi, everybody. Welcome.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, coaches.
Hey.
All right, you guys, don't forget to mute yourself so that we don't get background noise in our recording and everybody could hear. Coach Connie is going to kick us off, and I'm going to run the waiting room while she does that, just so we start on time and we're efficient. And if we have some time at the end, we can take some questions as well. So you want to kick us off, Coach Connie?
I sure will. And you guys are going to see me looking this way. I apologize. My notes are on my second computer, so I'm going to be looking back and forth. But if you see me looking over here, that's why I'm looking over here. So welcome, ladies. How is everything going? Everybody feeling good? Give me a thumbs up. Woo, having a fun time today. Awesome. So we are going to talk about handling conflict, because we all need to handle conflict, right? Because we have some crazy lives, and it can be work, home, whatever, within ourselves. There's lots of different things that conflict is. So what is conflict? Conflict is defined as disagreement or struggle between people with opposing needs, ideas, beliefs, values, or goals. So conflict can arise out of so many different things. It's basically a clash between individuals arising out of a difference in thought processes, attitudes, and understanding, interest, requirements, and even perceptions. So that's a big thing. Conflict results in heated arguments, can be physical, mental, emotional abuses, and a loss of peace and harmony. We've all probably experienced this, right? You have some issues with somebody, and that peace and harmony are right out the door. Think about at work. If you have an issue, a conflict with somebody, that peace and harmony just go way, way out the door. So one of the biggest reasons for conflict are misunderstandings, right? And one of the reasons for that is because everybody receives information differently. We're all different. And I might say something to Christine, and Christine receives that information in a way that it wasn't intended for me to say it, or the way I didn't intend for it to be said, but the way she receives it is just how she receives it. So a lot of times what we have to do is understand that we might say something with a certain intention, but the person who's receiving that information might not receive it with that intention. And that's a lot of times what leads to conflict, is just misunderstanding. So what are the phases of conflict? There's 5 phases. Prelude involves factors which arise among individuals, lack of coordination, different of interest. We talked about all of that stuff, misunderstandings, all of that kind of thing. The triggering event. So conflict just doesn't arise, right? It just doesn't happen. There's something that causes that, and that's the event that happens. So what was it that caused that to happen? The initiation phase is the phase when conflict has already begun, but this is where those arguments and, abuses and all of those things come into play. Differentiation phase is the phase when individuals voice out their differences against each other. The reason for conflict are raised in the differentiation phase. So here's kind of where you figure out where the conflict is. Even though it's already begun, sometimes we don't understand because of that misunderstanding, and now we figure it out. And then there's the resolution phase. That's the phase we want to get to. We want to figure out how to fix it, right? Because we don't want to keep the conflict because it's so stressful for us. So a conflict will lead nowhere. You must try to compromise. Yes, there's the big word. And to some extent, and resolve the conflict soon. So this is where you do that. And we're going to talk a little bit later about how to kind of do this and to prevent some of the conflict. So we got Coach Christine coming up next, talking about her part.
Thanks, Coach Connie. So you've got conflict. Now what? And as Coach Connie described, conflict can look a lot of different ways. Hopefully we don't end up like these two ladies here in this slide, but we're going to talk about some potential ways to move through conflict and not have fistfights with with our friends, our office mates, whoever it may be that we're finding ourselves in conflict with. So step one, name the fear and your goal. Ultimately, a conflict is probably coming from a place of fear. And it was interesting as I was listening to the presenter earlier, I was like, wow, she's talking about a lot of the things that we're going to talk about today. She talked about fear specifically. Fear can be a driving force behind conflict. And ultimately, when you are willing to come forward and be vulnerable, you are going to be naming your fear in that. So vulnerability is our most accurate measure of courage. I've got this Brene Brown quote on here for you guys. If you've ever seen her TED Talk on vulnerability, you'll hear that quote. And when you walk into a conversation showing courage and emotion, it opens up the other person to be more receptive to talking. This doesn't mean oversharing. It doesn't mean crying. It doesn't mean yelling. It doesn't mean being like those ladies in our last slide. It just means being vulnerable and honest. And honesty can be really hard to face sometimes. After that statement of vulnerability, express your hope. This immediately puts the conversation under a positive lens, and hopefully it becomes more goal-oriented. A couple examples of what this could look like. I actually pulled two examples from clients that I talked to them about recently. So the first problem could be, your friend is upset at you. You're on vacation with her. She's upset at you because you won't party with her. So I tried to pick some lady boss specific problems. And you're cleaning up your healthy lifestyle, right? You are like, I'm not going to have fruity cocktails. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. So there's a conflict that arises there because there was no communication about that in the beginning. So possible solution could be share your health and fitness goals. There's your vulnerability. Kind of scary, right? We got to rip off that Band-Aid and say, hey, I'm working on these things. Maybe you never even told her. So how is she going to know? And explain how hard you've been working. Let her in, and hopefully she is going to become a support system to you. That's your hope, right? Express what your hope potentially could be. Next example of what this could look like. Your husband thinks you're taking too much time away from family obligations by going to the gym. Sound familiar? Possible solution. Share your why. There's your vulnerability. Express your desire to be a better wife, mom, be healthier, have longevity. Those are your hopes. That is how you're going to start off this conversation when it comes to conflict. Handing it over to you, Coach Connie, for the next step. Oh, you're muted, Coach Connie. We got to unmute you.
Sorry. My dog was barking in the background. I didn't want to interrupt Coach Christine there. So, all right. So the next step in resolving conflict, take responsibility. Focus on you and your needs, not their actions. All right. So the biggest thing here, what we're talking about is if you go directly into a conversation with somebody that you're having a conflict with, and you automatically start with you statements, you did this, you made me feel this way, that puts them on the defensive very quickly. All right. So you never want to enter the conversation with you statements. Statements should always be I statements. So do a little self-reflection. I am big on self-reflection. I see we got one of my ladies here in our group, Chris Savard. Chris Savard knows I talk about this all the time. Self-reflection. We got to do self-reflection. We got to understand ourselves before we can really understand others. So do that self-reflection. Figure out what you need, where you're coming from, and how you can express yourself to that person so that you can compromise with them. And by doing that, by understanding you and by coming to them with the I statements, which I'm going to talk about here in a second, you can help bring down their defenses so that they're not automatically like, I am not going to talk to you about this, and or they're going to start yelling. If you start with me, I'm taking responsibility for me. I understand that I did this. I understand that I understood something. I need to understand what you're saying. I need you to explain it to me in a different manner. All of those kind of things are what we need to do with conflict. You need to go into, again, focus on your needs. What do you need out of that conflict? Did you not understand? Okay, I need you to explain it to me differently because I didn't understand, what you were trying to tell me. Think about the ways you express that and always come to them with you and what you need without criticizing them or their actions. The biggest way to turn somebody's hearing off is to start criticizing them. And this goes whether you have a conflict at work, a conflict with your significant other, a conflict with your children. The biggest way to turn somebody off from compromising with you and listening to you is to criticize what they are doing. All right. So the thing you want to focus on is you and helping them understand what you need so that you guys can compromise. Sending it back over to Coach Christine.
Awesome, Coach Connie. Thank you. Set me right up for step number 3. Ask for help and resolution. And I love that tip of thinking about, oh, how can I be responsible for this? And together we can come up with a plan. So confrontation is about transparency and collaboration, not defining a winner, as you'll see here on my slide. And if you come into this conversation thinking, I'm going to win, you're in the wrong headspace, okay? Because that's not what it's about. And that's immediately going to put that person on the defense, right? So instead of coming to the conversation or the confrontation in that way, think about, how can I enlist their help so that we are both part of the solution? It means that you can't just tell them, I need this, or you need to do this, just as Coach Connie suggested, and expect that I'm just going to go ahead and do it and move forward. No, this has to be a collaborative effort. So data has confirmed that when partners, teammates, friends, anyone that you're moving through conflict with, develop solutions together, they are more successful, especially when you harness the unique talents of each person. So thinking about, what are your strengths? What are their strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are their weaknesses? And how can you use that in your plan to move forward through conflict? So generate ideas for resolution together and then plan how you'll both move forward in implementing and putting them into action. Also consider having an outside party if it gets to the point where, well, we're just not, having success in this. Can you find somebody who has no stake in this confrontation to be a mediator? That could also be a helpful thing. So ask for help. Ask for their help, ask for outside help if you need it. So going back to those 2 problems I talked about in the first step, let's just think about how we could use these solutions. So your friend who wants you to party with her on vacation, let her in. Once you've expressed that vulnerability, ask her, how can you help and support me? Maybe she's really good at exercising and she wants to be a buddy in that. What ideas might they have? For example, if you're like, I can't have fruity cocktails while I'm here, maybe we can, but I can have ... or maybe she has some ideas. Or can we choose a dinner location together instead of being like, look, we're just going to go and eat whatever, wherever we tend to be. Going back to the problem with the husband who thinks you're taking too much time from family obligations, going to the gym, coordinate schedules, make a plan. Can you accomplish some high priority tasks by planning ahead? Maybe they need help with some things. Maybe your hubby's like, can you do the laundry and make the lunches for the kids? And then I would feel less stressed and less upset that you're not here in the evening. So maybe compromising, meeting in the middle is what you need to do there. Maybe you can spend an hour instead of 2 hours at the gym, but there's a conversation that needs to be had there. And at the end of that, you're going to evaluate your priorities, which is going to lead Coach Connie right into the next slide. There you go. Got to unmute again, Coach Connie.
I'm gonna get the hang of this, I swear. All right. So we're gonna talk real quick just about some rules to help prevent conflict and to help you kind of address conflict to get through it. All right. So some of these I am not going to get into an explanation for because they're pretty self-explanatory, like always treat people with equality and respect. So if you're treating people with equality and respect, it is unlikely that there's going to be a whole lot of stop. Sorry, my yard like backs up to somebody else's. So when they come out on their back porch, my dog has to bark at them. Okay. So if you're treating people with equality and respect, you know, there is less chance that people are going to feel like they're being attacked or have conflict. So always treat people with equality and respect. If you disagree, oh no, sorry, I missed one. Consider and respect others' views. So we see this a lot on Facebook, right? The not valuing or considering others' views and just automatically dismissing others' views instead of trying to understand people. That's where huge conflicts arise. Just completely dismissing somebody without trying to understand their point of view, because they could have a valid reason for their point of view. So never just disrespect or, you know, overlook somebody's point of view without trying to understand them. Remember, we listen to understand, not to respond. All right. If you disagree, say so and explain why. So that's the biggest thing. If you it's okay to disagree. We are allowed to have, you know, views that are different from others, right? It is absolutely okay to disagree with somebody. What is not okay is to disagree and be belligerent about it. Disagree, explain why you disagree, and hopefully that engages a dialogue and a conversation, which we're going to get down to later, but that helps resolve that conflict when you are very calm about it and explaining, you know, and helping people to understand you. That keeps those conflicts level. Make sure you're on the same page. And this doesn't mean the same page as far as you're going to agree. You're probably not going to agree if you disagree on something, right? But being on the same page about trying to compromise and understand each other's point of view and really taking that step back to be calm in how you address it. Pause before you hit send, or pause. This can also be pause before you hit send from your mouth. All right. Whether it's an email or from your mouth, it needs to be take a step back and think about what you are saying. We've all written that email or that text and then sat and thought about it a minute, like, probably shouldn't send this, and erase, and then just send something better. Right. Or sometimes we sent those texts and emails that we shouldn't have because we didn't take the time to think about it, or we said something that we didn't take the time to think about. So take that minute. Yes, I love that. Jenna put count to 5. Yes, take a breather, think about it, and think about what you're going to say. Make sure it's what needs to be said. Apologize when you do something wrong. This is hard, right? But if you are wrong, admit you are wrong. It's okay to go in there and be like, even if you were fighting, and then you realize you're wrong, that's when you need to go say, you know what? I was wrong. Own it. We talk about it a lot. Own it, own it, own it. One of the biggest ways to get respect from people is owning your mistakes. All right. Engage in honest, non-confrontational dialogue. This is what we talked about already. You know, be open and honest about how you feel. Don't accuse, don't use you statements. Try to open up that dialogue and don't automatically, you know, just disrespect somebody's viewpoint. Try to understand. We already talked about it. I'm not going to go back into it. Know who to turn to if you need impartial advice. So impartial advice. Don't turn to that person you know is just going to tell you what you want to hear and back you up just because they're going to back you up. Go to somebody who's going to be honest with you and let you know, like, yeah, you might be wrong in this. You might want to think about it. You know, go to that person who is going to be upfront and honest with you. Know when it's worth fighting for your point of view. So sometimes you are right? Sometimes you are right. And sometimes it is worth fighting for, but know those times. Don't waste your time fighting if it's not worth your time, because you are just going to cause yourself stress. Even if you're right, sometimes you just got to take that step back and say, you know what? this isn't worth my energy. I need to save myself and just step away from that situation. And then here's that takes you right into number 10. If it's unresolvable, distance yourself. Try to distance yourself from the source of the problem as much as you can and save yourself stress and heartache. All right, back over to Coach Christine.
Awesome, Coach Connie. So just to wrap things up, I love a little humor, and I think it's fun to think about this, especially when it comes to conflict and communication. If you're the first one to crack a joke, it might be a good thing, right? A little icebreaker. So just a little, couple little like fun little cartoons to finish up. And let's face it, you guys, 5 minutes of confrontation, no matter how awkward, right? Confrontation is going to be stepping outside of our comfort zone, is better than months of stress and resentment, especially if you've recognized this is something that I can actually take care of if I'm willing to step out of that comfort zone, get a little vulnerable, talk about my fear, tell them what's going on here, and come up with a plan together. And think about your language specifically and make sure that, they feel included in that process. If not, just like Coach Connie said, let's wipe that slate clean. Let's walk away, right? Because there are definitely going to be those moments where it's not worth it. So awesome, you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. We're out of time. So you guys can head over to your next breakout room and I enjoy. We'll see you back at the webinar in 20 minutes.
Bye, ladies. Have a great day.
I don't know if I should, I'm just going to leave the room open. We'll just let them take care of themselves.
Yeah, so I would just leave it open. Yep.
Anything to change in the meantime? You're feeling good?
I feel good. I think it went well.
Me too.
Yeah.
Let's go back to my first slide. I have way too many windows open on my screen right now.
Yeah. I have like I said, I always use my other computer because I'm not a Mac person. And I can't ever figure out the Mac. It's so I have like so many, between both, I have so many open. It's crazy.
It won't let me go into presentation mode and also see my notes. So not going to happen. We're going to keep it like that.
No worries. I think you can see it. I can see it fine. So
my best advice with transitioning from like a regular computer to a Mac is it's just, you got to rip the Band-Aid off, man. You just got to do it. Eventually it'll come.
But I can't like completely go to it because all of my schoolwork, and I use my other one for my other job. So I have to do like most of my stuff on this one.
Yeah. It's hard when you have to go back and forth. Absolutely. Yeah.
And then I come to this one and I have no clue how to work it. I'm just like, what the heck?
I remember feeling that way, but I've been like full Mac for a while now. All right. I'm going to start letting these ladies in.
All right, let's do it. I'm going to get back to the top of my notes here.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Make sure to mute yourself when you come in. We've got 2 minutes and then we're going to start so we can be efficient and on time.
Yes, ma'am.
And then don't forget, at the end of this breakout, you're going to go right back to the webinar. So have your webinar link handy. I'm gonna mute everybody. Not that we don't want to hear from you guys, but you can use the chat box if you want to chime in while we're talking. And if we have time at the end, we'll take questions. But we went right to time last time, pretty much.
I felt like I was talking really fast.
It's a lot of information to cram into 20 minutes.
It really is.
We want to tell you guys all the things. So, all right, we got 1 minute, T-minus 1 minute.
And it's so funny whenever I'm doing power hours and stuff with my ladies, it's like, I'll start talking about something and then it takes me somewhere else. And I'm like, they know I get off track so much. I'm like, and a lot of times I'll go into stuff that we're going to talk about the coming week. And I'm like, I've already talked about it now. So yeah, I always have to watch because I want to go into everything.
Exactly. It's hard for us not to just give you all the information. All right. Welcome, welcome. I can hear somebody recording in progress. Mute yourself, guys, when you come in, and I'll try to kind of keep on that as well.
Yay, finally one of my clients is here. Hey, Courtney.
Yay.
I'm like, none in this one. What?
All right, we're going to have Coach Connie go ahead and kick us off while I keep letting folks in.
Oh, wait, Lori's here too. Hey,
so
Lori.
we can be on time. Make
All
sure
right,
you
so
mute
we are gonna
yourselves.
get started. We are going to talk about handling conflict. So we're going to start with our first slide.
I'll get in there. Boom.
All right. What is conflict? It is defined as a disagreement or struggle between people with opposing needs, ideas, beliefs, values, or goals. So it's a clash arising out of a difference in thought processes, attitudes, understanding, interests, requirements, and even sometimes perceptions. It can result in arguments, physical abuses, and loss of peace and harmony. So one of the biggest things that to understand is that one of the biggest primary reasons for conflict is misunderstandings. And I talked about this in the last one. We all receive information differently, right? So I could say something to Coach Christine and I might intend it to be put out in a certain way, and she might receive it in a different way because everybody has a different way of receiving information. So one of the things that we need to understand is that misunderstandings often cause conflict. So we need to be able to try to understand each other better and to open ourselves up to that understanding. So with conflict, there are 5 phases of conflict. There's the prelude to conflict, which involves factors that arise in conflict among individuals. As we talked about, it could be differences in interests, thoughts, religion, educational background. All of these things can cause conflict. Next is the triggering event. So conflicts just don't happen, right? It's not like it's just like all of a sudden, there's a conflict. Nope, there's always something that causes that conflict. Then's the initiation phase. So this is where it's already begun, but now we have these arguments beginning, abuses, disagreements, all of those things start to happen in the initiation phase. Differentiation phase is when individuals voice out their differences. So this is where we're trying now to understand where the problem is coming from and hopefully try to go into the resolution phase, which is solving that conflict. So now Coach Christine is going to take over.
All right, you guys. So you've got conflict. Now you understand what conflict is. I'm sure we've all felt conflict before, but you've got conflict. Now what? So in the hopes that you don't end up like these 2 ladies here, we've got some solutions to move through the conflict process. So the first step is name the fear and your goal. So admitting your fear, which is oftentimes where conflict comes from, or misunderstanding or miscommunication, ultimately can create some sort of fear. You have to admit that fear to the person and show a little vulnerability, which is no fun. I know. You got to rip that Band-Aid off. The quote here I have from Brene Brown is that vulnerability is our most accurate measure of courage. And when you walk into a conversation, showing your courage and your emotion, it opens up the other person to be more receptive to talking. This does not mean oversharing. It doesn't mean crying. It doesn't mean yelling. It doesn't mean perhaps hopefully looking like those ladies in the last slide. Okay. What it means is being vulnerable and honest. After a statement of vulnerability, you're going to express your hope. This immediately puts the conversation under a positive lens and it can become goal oriented. A couple ways this could look like. I wanted to choose a couple examples for you guys from client issues that I've talked to them about recently. So, problem. Your friend is upset that you won't party with her on vacation. So you guys are on vacation together and she's noticed, your behaviors are different. And I don't like this. I want you to party with me like normal. So possible solutions, thinking about vulnerability and hope. Share your health and fitness goals. There's some vulnerability. Explain how hard you've been working at this. Let your friend in and then give her some hope. What is the outcome that you'd like to see here? I'd love for you to be a part of my support system. Second potential problem way that this could look like. Your husband thinks you're taking too much time away from family obligations by going to the gym. Who's been there? I know I have. Possible solution. Got to get vulnerable. Share your why. I know that's scary. You're like, my why is personal. It's mine. But sharing your why is going to show that person vulnerability. Express your desire. So what is your hope out of this? To be a better wife, a better mom, to have longevity, to be healthy. Share your hope. And that's going to give them an open line of communication to start to understand you better. So bringing it over to Coach Connie.
All right. So the next step we have to do is take responsibility for you. Focus on you and your needs, not their actions. So you're already in conflict. One of the biggest ways to put a stop block on that conflict and not get any compromise is to go in with you statements, right? And putting the blame on that person and say, you, it's because of you, your actions, you're this, you're that. So if you automatically do that, what happens? If somebody comes to you with that, typically, what do? You put up those defense mechanisms, right? Because you are automatically going to be in defense mode when somebody's blaming you for everything. So if you go into this conflict with I statements, focus on what you need. So go in with I statements of, I misunderstood what you were trying to say. Can you explain this to me in a different way? This takes some self-reflection. So my ladies in my group, I talk about self-reflection all the time, right? Self-reflection is so important. You need to understand you and where you're coming from, what your needs are, how you understand things in order for you to take that to somebody else and really help them understand what you need. So you need to do some self-reflection and look at it and say, okay, what do I need from this? And then go into that person using the I statements and say, okay, I did not understand, or I need, this, I need to understand it this way. Like, you need to explain to them how you need to hear things, how you need to receive things so that they can change the way that they are saying it to you. But if you automatically go in with you statements, they're going to block you out and this is never going to get resolved. So we're taking it back over to Coach Christine.
Awesome. Okay. So you've taken responsibility. You are removing the I from the equation. And next step is to ask for their help in resolution. So moving forward together. Confrontation is about transparency and collaboration, not defining a winner. And if you are showing up to a confrontation being like, I'm going to win this, then you're in the wrong mindset for conflict resolution. And again, that's going to put that person right on the defense. They're like, all she cares about is winning here, whether or not it's right or wrong. So you can't just tell them your suggestions and then move forward with implementing them and think that, well, I'm going to do these things. That person has to be on board as well. So instead, enlist their help so that you are both part of the solution. Data has shown that when partners, teammates, friends, family, whoever it may be who is in conflict, develop solutions together, they are more successful, especially when you harness your unique talents of each individual. So what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? Be willing to admit that. There's that vulnerability again. And how can the other person's strengths and weaknesses play into this as well? So generate ideas for resolution together, and then plan how you will both move forward, implementing that plan into action. An outside party could also be of use at this point, right? When it comes to asking for help, I think it could be like, look, we're butting heads. We're not we're trying to work together, but it's not working. Can somebody else step in here and give us some fresh eyes on the problem? So let's go back to those problems I talked about in solution, our step number 1. Your friend is upset with you because you won't party with her on vacation. So thinking about how can we do this collaboratively? You've let her in, you've been vulnerable, and hopefully now she's coming around and she's, okay, I can be on your team for this. How can she help and support you? So hopefully some ideas you can come up with together. First of all, ask her what her ideas might be. How can she help and support you? You might come out and unfortunately like do one of those I statements like Coach Connie was talking about earlier and say, I can't have fruity cocktails. But instead of that, maybe it's, I can have this. Can we choose where we're going to have drinks together? Can we choose where we're going to have dinner together? Let's do this as a collaboration. Going back to example number 2, thinking about your husband thinks you're taking up too much time from family obligations, going to the gym. This is a collaborative effort. Can you make a plan together? Can you come up with a solution that will suit both of your needs? Maybe he has some needs in the house, like he needs help with planning the kids' meals or doing the laundry or whatever, so you can take some of the pressure off of him. Can you compromise spending an hour instead of 2 hours with better planning? Maybe there's a gym closer to your house you can go to. Evaluate those priorities together. Take it away, Coach Connie.
All right. So the one thing that Coach Christine just said there that was good, and going back to that self-reflection, is that strengths and weaknesses thing, right? You only know your strengths and weaknesses when you really get into that self-reflection. So that was a little side note. Now I'm going to go to this. All right. So rules of conflict to help you get through this. Always treat people with equality and respect. When you are treating others the same way you want to be treated, conflict tends to be more controlled or minimal, because going to the next one that kind of fits in, if you are not respecting them or considering others' views, that can be the problem, right? And we see this on Facebook all the time, right? There is, people just don't consider anybody else's views and they only want to look at their views. And then it's all this conflict for no reason, because it's never like, let me try to understand your view. Let me try to understand your take on this. And because they could have a valuable, point of view that you didn't consider before. So always consider that and respect it. You can disagree. It is okay to disagree with somebody. You can disagree with people and still be friends and still be okay, but explain why you disagree. Don't just kind of, we see on social media all the time, the disagreements and just being belligerent, right? There's no real dialogue and conversation. So if you disagree, hey, I disagree, but here's why. Here's my point of view. Here's where I'm coming from. Be respectful about it and explain your point of view. Make sure you are on the same page. Now, this does not mean you have to agree. It doesn't mean same page where you're agreeing. It means same page where you're both being respectful and trying to explain and listening to understand, not to respond, right? Because a lot of times we do that. We're so quick to want to give our point of view and why we think it's bad that we don't really listen to their side to understand them. So make sure you're on the same page with that. All right, pause before you press send. Now, this means not only emails, but before you say something out of your mouth too, right? A lot of times we don't think. We send that text, we send that email, we say those things without taking time to think about it. And then it's like, oh, there it goes. And there's the conflict. So take that time. And I know me, I'm notorious for this because I am very, very quick to want to respond to stuff. And I will type a text out and it's usually not a good text. And then take that step back and I think about it and I erase it all. And I'm like, all right, let me do something better. I've done it at work where I'm like, whoo, I'm just going to tell them what I think. And then I'm like, let me not just tell them what I think. Right. So we gotta take that breath, take that step back, think about what you're saying before you press send, before you open your mouth. Here's the big one. Ready? Apologize when you are wrong. Guess what? You are wrong sometimes, right? You have to admit it. We are all wrong sometimes. Even if you fought tooth and nail to try to be right and you found out you're wrong, you need to apologize for being wrong. You gain so much more respect from people when you are willing to admit your faults, when you own up to your mistakes. So admit when you're wrong. If you're wrong, admit it. Engage in honest, non-confrontational dialogue. Again, here's something we see all the time on social media. It's always confrontational, because everybody wants to be the winner. Everybody wants to be right. And it's always got to be this confrontation. But if you try to engage people honestly and non-confrontational with those I statements and saying, I don't understand why you feel this way, that kind of opens it up a little bit more. Can you explain to me why? Like ask questions like that, non-confrontational. Coach Christine talked about this too, but know who to turn to if you need impartial advice. Impartial. That doesn't mean go to your friend who is gonna like pump you up and be like, you're right, don't let them get away with it, go get them. Like, don't go to that person, all right? Because that person's only gonna encourage the conflict. Go to the person who is going to tell you if you're wrong. Go to the person who's going to give you good advice to help you move forward. Know when it's worth fighting for your point of view. So sometimes you are right, and it is okay to be right as well. Know when it's worth fighting for. If you absolutely know you are right, it is okay to kind of fight for that. All right. And then if the problem is unresolvable, distance yourself. So if you know you are right and you have tried to put across your point of view, you've tried to compromise, that person is not listening, and they're just being, stressful to you, and they're not willing to help out, then know when to distance yourself. You have to step away. Sometimes you just have to let things go, walk away from it, and just know that they aren't going to do their part to solve the conflict, and step away from it. All right, Coach Christine.
Awesome, you guys. So ultimately, 5 minutes of confrontation is way better, in my opinion, than, months, weeks of stress. I've definitely stressed myself out over things for way too long because I've avoided confrontation. So rip that Band-Aid off, get vulnerable, and really assess the situation, do the work to fight for what's right, but remember to step away if it is unsolvable. And I always think humor is a great way to kind of kick off any conversation in a confrontation. It kind of like breaks that ice, makes everybody smile a little bit. We're all human, we're all imperfect. So have some fun with it as well, if you can. I challenge you to have fun with this conflict resolution strategy. Thank you guys for joining us. We're all gonna head back over to the webinar now. So I can't wait to see y'all over there. And I hope you took some little nuggets away from all of these breakout sessions. We'll see you on the webinar. Have
and
an
there's
awesome
some
day.
great stuff coming up on the webinar. So be there, guys. All right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
I'm going to drop the webinar link in here in case anybody needs it too.
Yeah.
Booyah.
Make it easy.
All right. I'm peacing out. We'll see you over there.
All right. Peace.